What's up, everybody? Going down this weekend, we got UFC Vegas 118, Belal Muhammad versus Gabriel Bonfim, and this is going to be my full card breakdown and predictions. I am really looking forward to this Apex card. I think that this is easily one of the best Apex cards the UFC has ever put together. A lot of really interesting matchups, and I found myself having a very hard time finalizing my predictions on a lot of these fights. And that's how you know that you're in for a fun night of fights. Really interesting style clashes, competitive matchups. We got a little bit of everything on this card. And it really starts with the main event. I mean, Belal Muhammad, a former champion, riding a 2-fight losing streak coming into this. But he's losing to some of the best guys in the world like Jack Della Maddalena, Ian Machado Gary. And at one point, Belal was on a crazy run in the welterweight division. He's got a crazy pace. He's a very well-rounded fighter, and he is looking to keep his top place in the welterweight division, and he's taken on a surging guy in Gabriel Bonfim, who is looking very, very impressive. Outside of that loss to Nicholas Dalby, he's kind of been dealing with a lot of different styles of fighters very impressively, right? He's got nasty power on the feet, a very solid submission game. Seems like he's got all the goods, but can he get through the biggest test of his career in Belal Muhammad? I can't wait to find out and break down the main event. And in the co-main, we got a very interesting fight here. We got Brendan All-In Allen, a guy that's been, at the top of the middleweight division for forever now. He's been fighting the who's who, some of the best guys in the world. And he's taken on a guy in Edmund Shahbazyan, who's 28 years of age, has been in the UFC for forever. And it feels like Edmund's one of those guys that has all the skills to be a top middleweight, but just has had these lapses in these fights, whether it's the gas tank, the grappling, the fight IQ. It just feels like it's always been something in an Edmund Shahbazyan fight, but he is riding a 3-fight win streak coming into this here, by far the biggest fight of his career against Brendan Allen. Cannot wait to talk about the co-main event and see how this thing plays out. And then we have Fares Ziam, one of my most highly anticipated up-and-coming fighters in the UFC. A little bit surprised by this matchup. I thought that Ziam was going to be fighting someone, maybe higher up inside the rankings, but Tom Nolan, a guy that's very game, only one loss in the career. He's looked very impressive. 2 guys on the rise that look really good. I think that this is a very, very fun matchup in the lightweight division. And then Santiago Luna, one of my favorite prospects in the UFC right now. I feel like one of the most underrated prospects in the UFC, is stepping in on short notice in place of Victor Henry to take on a very well-known fighter in Bryce Mitchell, by far the biggest opportunity of Luna's career. And Mitchell, shout out to him for taking this fight and continuing to stay on this card against a surging guy, because to me, Luna's the one with everything to gain here, and Bryce, in a way, is the one with everything to lose. A very, very interesting matchup at bantamweight. I love that fight. And then Matt Schnell, basically the Benny Dariush of the flyweight division. This at a catchweight bout. It was supposed to be Imanol Rodriguez, but now in steps Alessandro Costa, who's been, looking really, really good. Baranowski versus Tafa, that's a banger. Marcus McGhee, super high level versus John Yannis. It's an exciting fight. Silva, Chairez. We got some really good fights on this card, man. I'm excited to break this one down. That's enough yapping to get this thing rolling. So without further ado, let's rock and roll. First fight of the night. We got Souza versus Ariane Carnelossi. Now, if you did not know, now you know, this is a rematch, right? Back in the day, some years back, Carnelossi was able to get the job done over Souza back in, I believe it was 2019. But I feel like it's pretty safe to say that kind of the tale of the story coming into this fight is Souza has just improved leaps and bounds since the first time that these ladies fought. And really, Carnelossi has not really made any improvements in her game, at least significant improvements, to where when I've seen Souza, in her recent fights, there's some new wrinkle to her game, whether it's more technical striking, it's a well-rounded skill set, her grappling is really, really good. But this one's hard for me, because I am going to pick Souza here by a decision. But this is tough, man, because if you didn't know, now you know. Once again, Ariane Carnelossi, man, she's part of the JG MMA lifting club, dog. Yeah. Carnelossi's out here, man. She is jacked out of her mind, man. And I think that, she could potentially step on the stage at some point doing some women's bodybuilding competition. She's shredded, in incredible shape. We get those lifting sessions in, man. I'm joking. But listen, Carnelossi, she's dangerous, right? We've seen that throughout her career. She's dangerous. She's got power. She's solid on the ground as well. But I don't think her ground game's good enough to really trouble Ketlin Souza in this fight. And she battled some adversity against Piera Rodriguez in here. I know that, the result was what it was, but she battled some adversity here coming off of the sub loss to Talita Alencar, who's a solid grappler. I don't think Souza has the grappling skills of a Talita Alencar, but she's still competent, right? And that's what we've seen throughout her career. We saw that against Yasmin, was able to get her out of there with a sub. Close fight with Angela Hill, and look how good Angela Hill just looked against Jingnan, right? So very, very impressive there. Piera Rodriguez, I get it, okay, MMA math, but still, we've seen that Ketlin Souza can push a pace. She's got good forward pressure. The striking is solid. We saw that in the Bruna Brazil fight. And we've seen a lot of the time in WMMA, these women, a lot of the times, they'll run into each other on the regional scene. They end up rematching in the UFC, and the fighter that lost the first time, usually, in a way, a lot of the time, off of the top of my head, they actually are the ones that make the most improvements and end up getting the get back in the UFC. So even though Ariani's part of the lifting club, I have to fade my friend here in this fight. I think Carnelossi's dangerous. She's powerful. She is very physically imposing in there, but I think skill for skill, Souza, the better striker, mixes up the boxing with the kicks, the clinch game very well. And then I think that on the ground, I think she will have a little bit of an edge there. So wherever the fight goes, I think Souza will be a step ahead. I think she wins I'll say 30-27, Ketlin Souza sweep across the cards. Maybe Carnelossi takes an early round in there, maybe able to put Souza on her back and win some minutes, but I think Souza is the better fighter here. I think she's pretty far ahead of Carnelossi at this point in terms of the skills. Ketlin got much better. Carnelossi seems like kind of the same fighter to me since the first fight. I think Souza clears and gets this one done on the cards, unanimous decision. Next, we have Jesla Chaves versus Yannis Duben. Now, this is an interesting fight because Duben, on the Contender Series, had one of the craziest upsets, I think, of all time, right? She goes out there. Shannon Clark had some hype. A lot of people were thinking Shannon Clark was going to win, and I'm like, hey, man, I don't know. I feel like Duben's got some power, but Shannon Clark was the one that had shown that she was the more well-rounded fighter and that she kind of was the more polished, presumably UFC-ready fighter, and Duben said, hold on, watch this, and just drilled her with a nasty overhand right down the middle and slept her and knocked her out, and it had everyone going crazy. It was a viral moment. It was very, very cool. But I feel like this is one of those fights where it's like, you get so caught up in a brutal KO, which especially in WMMA is awesome to see. But in general, I mean, this was a nasty KO, man. One of the best KOs in DWCS history. But then comes into the UFC, and I get it. Carly Judice is actually a very good fighter. She's very solid on the feet, good striking, got brutally KO'd with a head kick. And we've seen prior to the UFC, tons of power, can finish you from anywhere, on the ground, solid ground game, on the feet. That's really where she can get things done. She's got a big power in her hands, that overhand right, to where I could definitely see her pressuring Chaves, making her uncomfortable. And if she lands that right hand clean, I think that Duben is very, very live to get a KO in this fight. I'm not ruling out Duben by any means in this fight, but I feel like if Duben's going to win, it's going to have to be by some sort of stoppage, because I think when you talk about the overall skill set, I feel like Chaves is just a step ahead of Duben everywhere. And I understand, listen, okay, she had a close fight with Sofia Montenegro on DWCS, but I feel like we saw more from Chavez's game in this fight. I know she didn't get the stoppage, and Duben had the wow, look at me moment, which is crazy impressive. But outside of a big overhand right landing, Chaves to me is the more well-rounded fighter. I think her ground game might be a little bit better, right? Still some questions because both ladies are so early in their UFC careers here. But she's got good kicks, good elbows, good knees, much better footwork, much better movement, to where I feel like she can stick and move from range and pull Duben into a lot of her shots. And I know she battled some early adversity, got hurt badly in this fight, but I think Sofia is probably a better fighter than Duben all around. I think Sofia Montenegro, can't wait to see her fight in the UFC. She's a dog, right? Going to move forward, put heavy pressure on you, walk you down, let nasty boxing combos fly. There's been some great ladies coming off the DWCS, man. So very, very exciting prospects here, but I got to go with Chaves here. The question is, do I think it's a late TKO stoppage or a decision? I'll side with a decision here, but I definitely think that someone is live to get a KO here. I think that Chaves, if she gets a stoppage, it'll be in the mid to later rounds. Kind of Duben starts to fade. The power starts to go. She becomes more of a sitting duck. And then Chaves kind of just, volume TKOs her late. Or I could see a scenario to where if Chaves stops moving her feet and maybe Duben, invests to the body to slow Chaves down, attacks that lead leg to take some of the base away and take away some of that movement, I could see Duben planting a big right hand on Chaves in this fight. But I feel like Chaves is going to not make the mistakes that we saw Shannon Clark made, which is being very stationary, kind of stuck in the mud, not using any movement. I think Chaves will just kind of outpoint Duben, keep her at range, and not fall into a big overhand right trap. So I'm not counting out Duben, though. Got a ton of power, got a lot of respect for her game, but I think Chaves is the more technical, well-rounded fighter. She'll put more points on the board and get this one done. I'll say 30-27. I think Chaves wins this fight all day long as she doesn't get clipped by a big missile from Duben. So I'll go Chaves. I think she's going to be a step ahead and a little bit quicker. Next fight, we got Jordan Leavitt versus Joanderson Brito. This is an interesting one. And what makes this fight so interesting to me is I haven't been high on Jordan Leavitt at all. I haven't been. And I know that he gave, a little bit of adversity to Paddy Pimblett, and that was kind of impressive, right? Kind of early, was having, not really moments, but was giving Paddy some fits, right? Kind of extended the fight maybe a little bit longer than what people thought, given the hype that Paddy had at the time, right? Was able to stop Victor Martinez, was impressive. Got, subbed by Chase Hooper, which, we're seeing from Chase Hooper. He hasn't really panned out, but still, Chase Hooper's good on the ground, and styles make fights. Leavitt's mainly a grappler. 2-fight win streak. Subbing Kurt Hollowball, who to me is past kind of his finest hour, or however you want to say it, right? Maybe a little bit more towards the washed part of his career, right? Coming off of this win over Yadier Davalle, and I feel like this is what might have a lot of people fooled. And that's kind of where I'm like, I just don't know how good Leavitt is. Because if the guys that he's beating are kind of older fighters or guys that I don't think are that good, right? And he's moved down to the featherweight division, right? And he looked really good against Davalle, but it was one of those things where Davalle in that fight against Dalgarian, we know the wax situation there. It's where it's like, well, how good really is Davalle? Is he good? Is he not? I feel like we still don't know if he's good because of the whole Isaac Dalgarian situation. Ran him over. We know that was suspicious as can be, right? It made no sense what went on there. We get what happened. It was whack. So it's like, okay, well, we really can't take much from that performance. And then Jordan Leavitt just dominates him on the ground for the first 2 rounds. Round 3, Davalle started to battle back and have some moments. But I feel like the read on Leavitt is unclear, right? Because he's a big guy, right? Well, is in this weight class. He fills out really well. And I know that Brito is going to have a slight reach advantage and be a little bit, Leavitt's going to be a little bit taller. But Leavitt kind of looks big in there to me in the featherweight division. And maybe him bumping down, he found his home. But man, Brito worries me because I really like Joanderson Brito. I like him more than Jordan Leavitt. I think that his style is very fun. He's got a ton of power on the feet, good Thai style of striking, good elbows, knees, good kicks. Lost a close one to William Gomez that could have went either way, right? Got dominated on the deck by Sabatini, but just because you get dominated by Sabatini, I don't know that Leavitt is on the level of Sabatini. Maybe with jiu-jitsu, but wrestling, I don't think Leavitt gets the fight to the floor as easy, right? In this fight against Isaac Thompson, people were like, Brito struggled here. It was a short notice replacement, and Isaac Thompson, I think, is going to be a prospect to keep your eye on. That guy looked good, man, and he's a much better striker than Jordan Leavitt. So one of these things, styles make fights. I'm going to side with Brito. And I think he can find a sub in this fight in the second round. We see Jordan Leavitt. I think he's going to get Brito down early. He'll have a dominant blanketing first round where he's controlling Brito. It's going to look bad. We're going to be like, oh, man, Brito, he's just going to get controlled. And then in round 2, we'll see Leavitt start to slow down a little bit. And I think the difference in this fight is Leavitt is a very jiu-jitsu-oriented fighter. His wrestling is not particularly great. His takedown entries are not particularly great. And I think on the feet, as durable as we've seen Leavitt is, and he can survive if he's stuck on the feet, which I think is impressive, because I think on the feet, Leavitt's kind of a disaster. He's awkward. He's funky. It kind of works because you're worried about his grappling, so I get that that's part of the style. Brito's much better on the feet, much more power, a lot more dangerous. But the problem with Brito is we've seen him taken down in a lot of these fights, man. In a lot of these fights. And I could very much see Leavitt just controlling him on the deck and, winning on the cards, winning a control-based decision, or maybe even getting to the back of Brito and finding some sort of sub. I think that this is a close fight, man. I think it's a tough fight to call because for me, I don't know what the gauge is on Leavitt. Right, this win over Davalle, I'm just kind of like, well, is it good or is it not? Because of given the Isaac situation, which I know is not exactly fair to Leavitt, but it is what it is. Right, Hollowball, Victor Martinez, not bad, so I just feel like in a lot of these fights, when Leavitt starts to slow down and he battles a guy that is a good overall athletic fighter, guys are able to find a way to get to him. And I think Brito's got a sneaky submission game to where I think if Leavitt slows down and he starts getting dinged up on the feet, he'll shoot a sloppy takedown, Brito's got some good front headlock position submissions, right? You could go for the darts, go for an anaconda, lock in a guillotine, little ninja choke maybe. I feel like Brito bangs him up on the feet. He's got the advantage there. Leavitt's path to victory, controlling him, maybe finding a sub. I think Brito will find a way to scramble and be able to make the most of it and land some good shots on the feet, get some damage going. After dropping maybe the first round, and I think in a scramble, he's going to be able to make a kind of fatiguing Leavitt pay at some point in this fight and get some sort of submission. If he KO'd Leavitt, I think that'd be impressive because Leavitt's shown to be pretty durable, but I think Brito's more athletic. I think he's the more well-rounded fighter. It's just one of those things where Leavitt's ground game is pretty good, but I'm going to side with Brito here. I like Brito. I think he's entertaining, and I think that his submission game can surprise Leavitt in a scramble in this fight. Give me Joe Anderson Brito. I think he's the better overall fighter. Next, we got Chelsea Chandler versus Priscilla Cachoeira. Anybody got a coin around here? You can't have any confidence in this pick. I don't think you can. You know, Priscilla Cachoeira, you can say what you want about her game. Her defense, striking defense on the feet is terrible. Her footwork is bad. Her grappling is zero. Brother, grappling is zero. But one thing you have to respect about Priscilla, she's going to bring it every single time. I know what she's going to bring to the table. She's going to walk forward and look to knock Chelsea Chandler out. And she's going to do everything in her power to keep the fight on the feet, not move her head, and just go bombs away. And if she lands, she's going to put Chelsea Chandler out. To where on the other side, I feel like Chelsea Chandler is probably the better grappler. But having said that, Chelsea Chandler doesn't have very good fight IQ. And remember when she hit that Stockton sprint and was running away? That Chelsea Chandler is a Looney Tunes type of fighter. It just doesn't look pretty in there. The striking is sloppy. The takedown entries are sloppy. Everything about Chelsea Chandler is sloppy. And I think in this fight, Chelsea Chandler has a pretty clear path to victory, which would just be the minute Cachoeira just starts putting that aggressive forward pressure on, duck underneath, level change, trip her, take her down, and get into a dominant position. Keep her there. See if you could soften her up with some ground and pound, find a submission, or just butcher her with some nasty elbows and see if you can get a stoppage. I feel like that's really Chelsea Chandler's path to victory here because on the feet, if this fight plays out 15 minutes of just straight kickboxing, I think Chelsea Chandler might have better output, but her striking is very, very sloppy. Her defense is very, very sloppy. And I think Priscilla is a better striker. I just feel like defensively, both women are not particularly good. Chelsea Chandler does move better, but it's not like great movement. It's not like intelligent footwork where she's like angling off, and it's just kind of her running around, right? So she's a very Looney Tunes style of fighter. Priscilla just kind of a hard-nosed OG type of style, just going to walk forward, high guard, look to put the pressure on you. If Chandler gets the fight consistently to the ground, she can win a decision or maybe even find some sort of stoppage. But we've seen throughout Chelsea Chandler, and I know getting knocked out by Jocelyn Edwards. Edwards is one of the best fighters in the division right now. I completely understand that. But we've seen throughout Chelsea's career, she is wildly inconsistent. Struggled with Yannis Santos with the striking, right? Was able to take down Josanne Nunez and have some success there, mix things up, right? Lost to Norma Dumont. Stopped Stoliarenko almost 4 years ago with ground and pound. So it's been a really long time. I understand Priscilla lost a decision to Claudia. Claudia's a much better fighter, in my opinion, than Chandler. And we saw Cachoeira landing some big shots on her, right? It was just basically Segula was landing some good, quick, pitter-patter shots, in and out, in and out, in and out, right? Wasn't able to have a lot of grappling success. I get it. Got knocked out by Jocelyn as well. Knocked out Nunez, where, she was going, Chandler's going to a decision. Right? That's the thing with Priscilla. She's got a nasty, nasty power striking game. And the girls that are submitting her are good. They're actually pretty good. So I'm actually going to side with Priscilla here, and I think she's going to get a knockout. Round 1 or 2, I think she KOs Chelsea Chandler. We've seen with Chelsea Chandler, I'm kind of pulling for Chandler in a way, right? Because I actually do think she's entertaining to watch, Looney Tunes style of fighter, but I know what I'm getting from Priscilla. She's a fighter through and through. She's going to walk you down. She's got the mindset to where Chelsea Chandler, when you tag her clean, man, she just has some bad reactions to where I can see her shooting a sloppy takedown. Priscilla will sprawl, put her back on her heels, on the feet, push her up against the octagon side, land a big right hand, and put her away. So I feel like if Chandler battles any adversity on the feet, I think Priscilla can put her away. Styles make fights. If Chandler gets her down, she can find a way to win it. But I think Cachoeira, first or second round KO. I'll side with a first round KO. I think Chandler's defense lets her down in this fight. And I don't know that Chelsea has the power to discourage Priscilla or the striking accuracy to outdamage her. Next, we got Bruno Brazil versus Edgar Chairez. Now, this is one I've went back and forth on. because I see the case for Edgar Chairez to win, and I see the case for Bruno Silva to win. Bruno Silva's been in there with some really good competition. He's coming off of a razor-close decision loss to Charles Johnson, where it could have went either way. I picked Charles Johnson in that fight, and I thought it was really close. Right? Bruno Silva's one of those guys where he's almost kind of like, I don't know, became like a gatekeeper to the flyweight division, where if you can get through Bruno Silva impressively, you're going to be on your way, kind of riding to the top of the flyweight division. But got the submission victory over Hyun-Sung Park, which was very, very impressive. Got stopped by Joshua Van, stopped by Benel Cap, two of the best strikers in the weight class, stopped Cody Durden almost two years ago, and we just saw what Durden did to Jafel Filho. So Bruno Silva, to me, is one of these guys that is a little bit inconsistent at times. Good striking variety on the feet with the boxing, the kicking game, the elbows and knees in close. He's got a, crafty ground game that he can mix in. He's a well-rounded fighter. Power on the feet, good striking, good submissions, good takedowns. He's going to be at a pretty big reach disadvantage here. Edgar Chairez is going to be a little bit taller, going to have about a 5-inch reach advantage here. I'm an Edgar Chairez fan, man. I've been a fan of this guy. I think he's really entertaining, man. He's got really, really good striking. He's got a crazy reach for this weight class. He's got a good jab, good leg kicks, and Edgar is dog tough. So do I think that Silva's going to knock him out? Probably not. Do I think Silva's going to submit him? I mean, it's possible. We've seen Chairez submitted in the past, but I feel like Edgar's made a lot of improvements in his game. He's made a lot of improvements in his game, and I do want to hand Edgar 2 participation trophies, going distance with, I believe it was Tatsuro Taira, and also Joshua Van, where he had, a few moments sort of in this fight, even though Van took it on short notice, and we picked Van in that fight. Submitted Daniel Lacerda, subbed CJ Vergara, coming off of a close fight with Felipe Boons. Man, if this Felipe Boons fight didn't happen, I would be picking Edgar Chairez actually kind of confidently. But that Bunez fight, it wasn't good, man. I thought he would run away with it. You're staying on the feet with Bunez, you should be able to outstrike him, and Felipe was landing some good shots. So I don't like the last performance. But I'm going to kind of, I guess, bank on the fact that is not the Edgar Chairez I know. And I think that he can stick and move behind the jab in this fight. I think that Bruno Silva is a guy that, he's getting knocked out by some of the better strikers in this weight class. I don't think he's the most durable fighter, man. I don't think he's the most durable guy, and I feel like he's going to have some issues getting inside the range of Chairez. Chairez is one of those guys that if you take him down, he'll make you pay. Elbows and knees in close, right? He's got an active guard off of his back. He does have a nasty guillotine. He's got some nasty submissions as well. So if Silva takes him down, I feel like it's one of those things where, maybe Silva's the better wrestler, and if you could put Chairez on his back, he's going to win the minutes, but Edgar's got some good submission skills. And I think on the feet, Bruno Silva may be the more well-rounded striker, but I think Chairez, if he fights behind the jab, fires the right hand behind it, I think he can sting up Bruno Silva and out-damage him in this fight and attack the lead leg, slow down some of the movement of Silva, start to bang him up a little bit more along the octagon side as the fight plays out. Give me Edgar Chairez to win a close decision here, but I definitely see the case for Bruno Silva to win this one done. To get this one done, he's more crafty, more savvy. He's got a well-rounded game, but I think Chairez is good, man, and I think that he has a skill set that can come in here and go, back and forth with Silva and outscore him with the jab and the leg kicks. Give me Edgar to get this one done. I think he's a ton of fun to watch. This is a great fight. This is a very close fight, but I am going to side with Chairez in this matchup here. I like the jab of Chairez. His boxing is solid. He's dog tough. And I think if he can put some pressure on Silva, he can start to have some success as the fight plays out. And this was a good look. Even though he lost to Charles Johnson, like we know Charles Johnson is kind of hit or miss, but Johnson's a good striker. And I guess you could say he's a better overall, more, dynamic striker than Chairez. But to me, styles make fights in a way. I'm going to go Chairez with the reach advantage, the jab, the leg kicks. I think he can make Silva pay as he gets close. And off of his back, I think Chairez can have an active guard and make some things happen. So give me Edgar to get this one done by a close decision. But I could see this fight going either way. Next, we have Marcus McGhee versus John Yannis. Now, kind of an interesting matchup here because Marcus McGhee just fought Petr Yan and lost, right? Where it was like, well, why is Marcus McGhee getting a Petr Yan fight? And it was like, well, Yan wanted to stay active, and I guess that's kind of what they had available given the way that the division was booked out, to now Marcus McGhee getting one of those matchups to where we're like, why is this guy fighting Marcus McGhee, right? So the UFC kind of has a funny way of matchmaking at times, but this is a sick fight Because John Yannis is a guy that if you're not going to grapple with him, right? We saw him come in on his debut, was coming off of Fury, had a very, very impressive career over there, right? Well, not career, but was before getting to the UFC. His fights over in Fury, very impressive. Nasty striking on the feet, tons of power in his hands. He's a slugger. He's like a DH, right? He's the guy that you put in there because you're like, we got confidence in this dude, man. He's got some power. He's a power hitter. That's what John Yannis is in the bantamweight division. He's a power slugger. And the only problems that we've seen really in Yannis' career up until this point is the grappling. And Austin Bashi's a really good grappler. Good wrestling. His jiu-jitsu game is coming along. So to get your back taken and submitted by Bashi, not a bad loss, right? And I think that this might have been short notice. I can't remember correctly for Yannis in that fight. But then he goes to Canada and makes easy work of Siraj. Just absolutely destroyed him, right? Yannis is a big guy for this weight class, right? I know it says he's 5'7" with a 70.5-inch reach, but he looks big in there. He's powerful. Moves well. That left hand down the middle is a laser beam. He's got a ton of power. This, to me, just feels like one of those fights where I think Yannis is very live to possibly find a way to KO McGhee. And I know McGhee is very, very durable. He's the more experienced guy. He's 36, even though he looks like he's 50. Marcus McGhee's a nice guy, man. I like Marcus McGhee from what I've seen. Seems like a great guy. Training over at MMA Lab, a great camp. I got to go Marcus McGhee here. I got to go Marcus McGhee to get this one done by a decision. And look, what we've seen from Marcus McGhee hasn't beaten, if you look back on his resume, it's not like he's beaten the best of competition either. So I don't think that he's like head and shoulders above John Yannis, right? Especially on the feet. I know McGee's got better kicks, better movement, can mix things up maybe a little bit better. He's got some solid hands as well. Maybe the more speedy guy, but I think Yannis hits harder. I think he hits harder, and I actually think he's the better boxer, right? The Jonathan Martinez fight, kind of a good win, right? Well, not kind of, it is a good win. Martinez is a leg kick, destroyer. So not a good performance there, right? Good win. Petr Yan was able to have some early success, and then Yan just took over, and that's what Yan does. I got to go McGhee, though. I think that this is a big step up for John Yannis. I think he's going to be in this fight. I think he's going to surprise some people here, and I would not be surprised whatsoever if Yannis lands a massive shot, a missile on McGhee and puts him away. I really think highly of John Yannis, but Jamie Siraj just isn't that good. That's kind of the reality. To where Marcus McGhee, we've seen he is durable. He could take a shot very well. He's got a ton of experience in the UFC. He's well-rounded. I think he's the more well-rounded guy. And we've seen Yannis have some issues with grapplers. And I know that Bashi's a good grappler, but prior to the UFC, if you watch some of those fights earlier on in John's career, he was having some issues with the takedowns, people getting to his back. We've seen okay offensive grappling from him, but at the UFC level, I got to see a little bit more before I pick him over a guy that I know is very well-rounded and very poised, very experienced in Marcus McGhee. So I'm going to go McGhee here. Maybe McGhee could find some sort of finish to where he just kind of, is able to outland Yannis, wear him down, find maybe a mid to late round TKO. But I think if we see a stoppage in this fight, it would be Yannis landing a missile on McGhee and putting him away. I really like what I've seen from John Yannis, man. The guy's very dangerous. He's strong for the weight class. He's got a ton of power. His boxing is good. But I'm going to side with McGhee. I think he fights a smart fight. You're going to see some of that crafty, savvy, UFC veteran-like experience on display in this fight. He's going to mix in the leg kicks, shots to the body, switch up the stances, keep him guessing, lots of movement, lots of footwork. And I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus looks to grapple a little bit in this fight. I think that would be a smart game plan to avoid some of the early explosiveness of John Yannis. So give me Marcus McGhee. I'll say 29-28. I'll say Yannis takes a round in here based off of damage and maybe even dropping McGhee. But like I said, do not be surprised if Yannis KOs Marcus McGhee. I like what I've seen from Yannis. Very dangerous. Next up, we got Iwo Baranowski versus Junior Tafa. This is a great fight. The matchmakers knew what they were doing here. Two guys that are must-see TV in the light heavyweight division. So here's the deal with Junior Tafa. Ever since dropping down to light heavyweight, right? At heavyweight, he was kind of hit or miss, and really it was the reality of we know that Junior Tafa's first line of takedown defense, I do think is okay, but it's when guys are persistent with the takedown to where they're able to get to a trip, they're able to be a little bit relentless in the pursuit, they extend the takedown and they're able to finally get Tafa down. But that first initial shot, he does a pretty good job of defending, but then if you stay on it, that's where you're able to get Junior Tafa down, and that is what we've seen throughout his career. But if you go out there and you are standing in front of Junior Tafa for long periods of time, Tafa can strike with some of the best guys in this weight class. And I actually really like the move for him going from heavyweight down to 205 because I think he's in better condition. I think he's faster. And I think his striking can hang with, like I said, with some of the best guys in this weight class, man. The problem is the grappling of Junior Tafa and the fact that he's willing to put himself into the line of fire to where he kind of puts himself in these 50-50 types of positions, right? Getting submitted by Tuco Tucos, not a great look. Billy Alicana, right, almost knocked him out, which was crazy. And we know how good Alicana is. One of the better up-and-coming guys, I think, in the weight class, right? Alicana, very technical on the feet, was able to eventually get Tafa down as the fight played out and got to the back and submitted him. But, man, Tafa almost KO'd him, right, which was actually very impressive, right? And we picked him here against Kevin Christian because Christian's got zero defense on the feet, and he shouldn't be in the UFC. So that was basically a layup win for Junior Tafa. I think Junior Tafa is very live to knock out Iwo Baranowski in this fight, but stay with me here. Here's why I don't know that Tafa wins this fight. Iwo Baranowski is a guy that I believe all of his wins are basically like first-round finishes for the most part. So if this fight extends, I actually think that could play to the advantage of Junior Tafa because we have to see that Iwo Baranowski, gas tank on display to where I think Tafa's gas tank has been suspect, but I think at 205, he has to get himself in better condition in order to be able to make the weight class, right? But since coming in to the UFC, right, on Contender Series, nasty knockout, right, the crazy, basically, barroom brawl with Ibo Aslan, Ooga Booga, back and forth, guys are ducking and chucking, winging a bunch of Ooga Booga shots, right, was able to get the KO, got stung in that fight. He does that in this fight, Tafa's knocking him out. Austin Lane, Junior Tafa, in my opinion, especially with Lane dropping the 205, at 205, Tafa would absolutely smoke Austin Lane, in my opinion. So it's not like Baranowski's having the greatest of wins. So I actually think that this is a little bit dicey, man. I've been high on Iwo Baranowski, but I'm nervous because if he goes in there and just brawls with Tafa, Tafa's the more technical striker. I think Tafa's the better striker. But Baranowski does have one-shot power, and I think that, like I said when I was saying stay with me, the path to victory for me for Iwo in this fight is very, very simple. Get Tafa to swing, duck underneath. Iwo's got very good judo, very good throws, very good tosses, excellent trips, very, very underrated grappling, right? I feel like we kind of know about his grappling, but we haven't seen a lot of it in the UFC. I think he should bring it out in this fight because if he just has this crazy slugfest with Tafa, that increases the chances of Tafa being able to catch him because I think Tafa's the better striker. Even though Baranowski's got power, Tafa to me is the more technical striker. I think Baranowski comes out, bangs up the lead leg of Tafa. We see Tafa doesn't do the best job dealing with low kicks, especially, if you throw it to the calf. Tafa will get he'll start to reach. He'll start to get a little bit frustrated. That's where he'll swing a big looping shot. That's where I think Iwo can duck underneath, take him down, and find a submission. So I'm actually going to say that Iwo Baranowski submits Junior Tafa in this fight. I think that Iwo is very physically strong. He's got a ton of power to where he could absolutely catch Tafa in the first round here and put him away. But if I'm Baranowski, I'm trying to take the path of least resistance here because I think if you play the striking game with Tafa, you're just giving him a chance. We're on the ground. I don't think Tafa can compete with Baranowski. We're on the feet. Junior Tafa can absolutely compete with Baranowski, in my opinion. So interesting fight. I think Tafa's got more of a chance than maybe what some people might think because I do think Tafa's a very good striker. But I got to go Baranowski here. I think the grappling, I think he can get Tafa to think it's a striking battle, get to open up, swing some big shots. Then you see Baranowski get a hold of him, get to a trip, take him down, put him in a bad position, maybe even stop him with some ground and pound, right? Put him in the crucifix, get into a good dominant top position. But I think Baranowski can get to a spot, find a submission, and get Junior Tafa out of there. Because if you can flatten out Tafa on the deck, that is really where he's very, very helpless, right? That first line of takedown defense is good along the octagon side, but if you can get him on his back, Tafa pretty much can't get up. So I think Baranowski gets it there and is able to put him away. But if it stays on the feet, I think that it could be anyone's fight. And I think if Tafa fights smart, fights technical, can stuff the takedowns, I think Baranowski could definitely be in some trouble in this fight. But I'm high on Iwo, man. Give me him in this fight to get it done by, I'll say submission. I think he breaks out the grappling in this fight. But I think Tafa's very live to pull this one off, though. Next up, we got Matt Schnell versus Alessandro Costa. So those of you that don't know, I have officially awarded Matt Schnell entry and granted him access into the Benny Dariush Washed Club, right? And the Chinny Chinny Chin Club. Matt Schnell, to me, is essentially the Benny Dariush of the flyweight division. A guy, and I'm not saying Dariush was a way better fighter than Matt Schnell ever was, right? So I'm not saying that Matt Schnell at some point was like some sort of potential title contender. Like, that's not how I look at Matt Schnell. I just see Matt Schnell as the guy who the UFC is throwing to these up-and-coming guys to basically get a highlight reel finish. That's who Matt Schnell is. And Matt Schnell's a guy that he's been 1 foot in and 1 foot out of the fight game for the past several years, in my opinion, right? He's retiring, he's back, he's this, he's that. And it's disappointing to see Imanol Rodriguez pull out of this fight. I hope he, can get healthy, man, because I think Imanol Rodriguez is one of the best prospects in all of the UFC. This was a layup-free highlight KO for Imanol. So the fact that he's not going to get to probably fight Matt Schnell just stinks, because he was going to get a highlight reel KO, in my opinion, right? Matt Schnell's last victory here was against Jimmy Flick, who I never thought was that good. Right? So outside of that, he's been getting finished by some of the better. Now, to be fair, these guys are actually pretty good, right? So we get that. Joseph Morales coming off a tough, beat Alibi to win the Ultimate Fighter. We've seen that Matt Schnell is very, very good. He's got we've seen that, not Matt Schnell, Joseph Morales is very, very good. Had the UFC experience, was able to submit him. Alessandro Costa is going to destroy Matt Schnell, man. And I think he's going to knock him out probably in the first or second round. Now, where I struggle in terms of a prediction here is whether Costa's going to knock him out or submit him. Now, yes, Costa is stepping in on short notice, so we got the catch weight here. But Costa, to me, is a guy that's always training, right? I believe he trains with Diego Lopez and Alexa Grasso. He's got the same kind of style, right? That high guard boxing, blast, the leg kicks. He's got a very good jiu-jitsu game to where if he can rock you, he'll hop right on the back and find a sub. So that's where I'm kind of like, what's the path? How does Costa win? Does he rock Schnell, put him on the deck, take the back and find some sort of sub? I definitely think that's possible. But outside with a KO, because we've seen from Costa, a lot of these have been KOs, right? The ground and pound stoppage over Jimmy Flick, right? Did lose to Steve Erceg, but we know how good Steve Erceg is. Getting the stoppage over Kevin Borjas, very impressive. Alden Correa pieced him up. I think Costa was compromised in this fight, if I'm not mistaken, but Correa is really good, and Correa would stop Matt Schnell with ease. Stop Stuart Nickel, brutal left hook to the body. He's looking good, man. He's looking very, very good. Stuart Nickel's a solid wrestler. I mean, how does Matt Schnell win this fight? I know Matt Schnell's ground game is okay. He's got some submission ability to where maybe he could sneak a shot in there that Costa doesn't see coming, somehow catch him in a scramble with a sub. I mean, that's really how Schnell wins, but he's literally the Dariush of this division, man, in terms of just no durability anymore whatsoever. So I got to go Costa here. I think he can butcher the lead leg of Schnell, make him a sitting duck, and I think Costa's boxing has gotten a lot better. The lead leg, attack with the leg kick is a great weapon that he utilizes, very much like Grasso and Diego. Walks forward with a high guard, very durable, very aggressive, very forward pressure-based. Not the best footwork in terms of cutting the octagon off, and that's a critique I have for Grasso and Diego. They got good striking, but they don't do the best job. They move forward a lot, but they don't cut the cage off very well, and we see that with Costa a lot. So the good news is here, Schnell's got like no footwork. I think Costa rips a nasty shot to the body, puts him down, puts him away. Very first round. I think Matt Schnell is getting ran over in this fight. First or second round stoppage, whether it's a KO or a submission, that's where it's kind of, the hardest part of the prediction, in my opinion. But I'm going to say Costa, he's been getting a ton of KOs, been hunting for him. I think he gets a KO, works to the body, brings the shots around the guard, and puts Schnell away in round 1 or 2. I'll say it happens in the very first round. And I don't think the gas tank will be a problem. Costa's always training. I think he gets it done. Ooh, Bryce Mitchell versus Santiago Luna. I was going to pick Bryce Mitchell with very high confidence over Victor Henry, and I thought in a way that was pretty much a layup for Bryce Mitchell. I thought he was just much better than Victor Henry. To now going, man, I don't know if Bryce Mitchell wins. And listen, this could be one of those fights where Santiago Luna, right, the prospect that's got a ton of hype, he hasn't really fought anybody yet, and you just throw him in there with an experienced vet like Bryce Mitchell who's been fighting the who's who. The only guys that beat Bryce Mitchell are kind of these physical forces, especially at 145, right? Ilia Topuria, Josh Emmett, John Silva. Like, he loses to those big, heavy hitters. When you put someone that isn't necessarily a heavy hitter in front of Bryce Mitchell, that does maybe have some holes in their grappling, Bryce Mitchell is usually going to easily win those fights. But Bryce Mitchell's obviously now at bantamweight, right? Got destroyed by Jean Silva, got submitted in that fight, but we know how good Silva is. Drops down to 35, and Bryce Mitchell's big for this weight class, right? 5'10", 70-inch reach, right? Came off of a very impressive debut at bantamweight against Said Nurmagomedov, but Said was landing some big shots. was threatening with some submissions as well, to where at moments it got dicey, right? But at the end of the day, Bryce Mitchell clearly won the fight, but it got a little bit dicey. And my issue in this fight here is I'm kind of struggling with the fact of I'm very high on Santiago Luna. I've picked him in every fight since he's came into the UFC, right? Made that, I think it was a short notice debut at Noche, right? Was able to get it done over Quang Le, got rocked early, but battled through, was able to knock him out, right? Put on a great performance against Angel Pacheco, did slow down, right? And when we look at the competition, neither of these guys is as good as Bryce Mitchell. But to me, it's one of those things, man, where I'm looking at this stylistically, and it's like, Santiago Luna's background is very high-level wrestling. This guy's a very, 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 very good wrestler. Now, having said that, seeing it in MMA, we haven't seen a ton of it. So we're kind of going off of, well, we've kind of seen it on the regional scene. We know his credentials. He's a high-level wrestler and all that kind of stuff. But Bryce Mitchell's the proven MMA grappler, to where if Luna's grappling takedown defense doesn't hold up, and we've seen that he has issues with the cardio, to where this is short notice that he's stepping in here, and a guy that's shown that he's explosive and slows down, that's where I could see Bryce Mitchell definitely starting to take over as the fight plays out. But here's my question to you. If Santiago Luna's takedown defense ends up being really, really good and this fight plays out on the feet, who's the better striker? Is it Bryce Mitchell? I mean, maybe Bryce Mitchell's a little bit more dynamic. He throws out the flimsy little front kicks, which are good, right? Because he's got that kind of rangy kind of frame, awkward striking. He's got good head movement, man. People forget that Bryce Mitchell was bobbing and weaving under those Ilia Topuria bombs, right? But Bryce Mitchell, I feel like he's got to get this fight to the ground. And I feel like he could land on Luna because Luna's, striking defense is not the best, but he's young. He can take a shot very well. And I feel like Bryce Mitchell, his path to victory in this fight is to kind of sting Luna with some shots on the feet, keep him at range. When Luna gets overly aggressive, duck underneath, trip him, take him down, put a good wrestler on his back and in awkward positions, to where I feel like Bryce has the jiu-jitsu advantage in this fight. And I've went back and forth on this one. So, maybe towards the end of the week, maybe I do end up flipping my pick. But the way I've been so back and forth on this fight, man, for the reasons of Bryce has been in there with the best guys. He's only lost to devastating power hitters. And I don't think Luna is a devastating power hitter. But I think that his style could potentially get Bryce some problems, man. I think it could. But then I see Bryce with the experience. And I think that on the ground, it's kind of like, well, how good is Luna's grappling in MMA? And he's got some gas tank problems. And this is short notice. So does he gas out? So I got a lot of questions here, but I am going to side with Santiago Luna. I've been high on this guy, man. I was high on him coming into the UFC. He's made me look really good, and I know that he slowed down in this Pacheco fight, but I think it was good that he went a hard 15, and Pacheco's durable, and I think in a way, Pacheco might be a better striker than Mitchell. I don't know that that's that crazy to say, in terms of the boxing at least. Mitchell's chin is on a platter. His striking defense is not that good. Man, I don't know. This is such a tricky fight to pick, in my opinion, because Bryce is the guy that's established, and it's like one of those where it's like you got the hyped up guy, or am I going to pick the hyped up guy and then look like an idiot because Bryce, you should have known, man, Bryce Mitchell would win. He's the experienced guy, man. And it could be one of those situations where almost 22 years of age, it's just one of those where Luna suffers an early L to an experienced guy, and then bounces back later on, right? And Mitchell, I mean, look who he's been beating, right? Dan Ige, right? Kron Gracie was able to stop him, but Kron Gracie's literally basically just a straight one-dimensional. It's like a time capsule fighter, just straight jiu-jitsu, right? Man, I think Santiago Luna is better than Said Nurmagomedov. I do, especially with the takedown defense. I just worry about the gas tank of Luna. If I had a guarantee that Luna's gas tank would hold up, I think I would have a lot more confidence. The gas tank worries me. The experience of Mitchell. He's also the guy that's got the full camp, but man, Luna's striking has gotten good, man. His boxing is solid. I think he's a better boxer than Mitchell. And the other thing is, even though Mitchell, I think, can land on Luna, doesn't have a ton of power. He doesn't have a ton of power. So I think Luna can sprawl and brawl, out-damage Bryce Mitchell. If he was able to stop Bryce Mitchell, that'd be absolutely crazy. I definitely think it's possible. I think it's possible Mitchell could take down Luna, control him, put him in bad positions, win a dominant grappling-based decision, maybe outland him with some toothpick-like striking on the feet, right? Get to a dominant spot, find the back of Luna, get to a limb, submit him. I think all options are on the table here, man, but I am going to side with Santiago Luna given the style clash. I like his striking. He's more dangerous on the feet. And I think if his takedown defense can hold up, I think he can put Bryce Mitchell in some danger on the feet. I'm not saying that Luna's as good as an Ilia or a Silva. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying stylistically, I think Luna's got some really good boxing. He's young. He's making a ton of improvements. And I think that his grappling is very, very good to where he can possibly keep this on the feet and out-damage and out-strike Bryce Mitchell and get it done in a close one. I could see either guy winning. I've been very back and forth. In case you can't tell, I've said that already. But I'll side with Santiago Luna in this one because of the striking advantage, and I think his grappling can stifle what Mitchell brings to the table. But we'll see because Bryce is a very good grappler. Great fight, great matchup. Better than the Victor Henry fight. Next up, we got Ziam versus Tom Nolan. As I was saying at the beginning of the video, I thought Ziam was going to be fighting, like a top 10 guy or someone definitely in the top 15 for his next fight. So, interesting fight here. Maybe it's him just trying to stay busy, maybe having a hard time getting a matchup. I'm not quite sure with a ranked opponent. But this fight, to me, just basically comes down to we have two guys with crazy frames for the lightweight division. Ziam 6'1", Nolan 6'2", 75-inch reach for Ziam, 73 for Nolan. Just crazy, frames for this weight class, right, compared to a lot of fighters. I think the reach advantage is going to be able to display for Ziam. Ziam's got really good footwork, and he's a guy that, he got submitted by Terrence McKinney. Terrence McKinney is a very dangerous fighter early. We know that. Terrence McKinney in the first, 2 minutes has a chance against anybody in this weight class, just about. Not everybody, but most guys. Ziam, to me, is just better at everything than Tom Nolan, at least in my opinion, from what I've seen at least recently, right? Look at Ziam, the role he's been on. Jai Herbert, very technical striker, a better overall technical striker than Tom Nolan, was able to have moments against him on the feet, was able to mix things up. Right, the close fight with Puelles. Puelles is a weird matchup for a lot of guys, given the style he brings to the table. Stops Matt Frevola with the knee to the head, very impressive. Dominated Mike Davis, who's a very good fighter, very well-rounded, and we've seen Ziam take his game to the next level, where we're seeing him mix in the grappling. We're seeing him stop a very dangerous striker like Nazim Sadikov, who I think is more dangerous than a guy like Tom Nolan, right? And I know Nolan got KO'd by Nicholas Mata, but I think that's something that could potentially, we could see something similar in this fight, right? Yeah, stop Victor Martinez, which was impressive. Alex Reyes, Vyacheslav Borshov, right? Charlie Campbell had him hurt, I think, in that fight, right? Was landing some good boxing combos on the feet and some bad fight IQ by Campbell, and Nolan capitalized. Right, Tom Nolan's very good. He's got that rangy frame, good front kicks up the middle, good knees, good elbows, but he's got the tall man defense. Tall man defense, very linear in and out movement, not the best of footwork. I think Fares is the sharper striker. I think Fares has more power. I think he's more dynamic. And I think given the improvements that we've seen in Fares' game, I think he's a better grappler. I think Fares is just, unfortunately for Nolan, I think Ziam's pretty much better at everything at this point, man. And I think Ziam is going to be able to catch that chin that's up in the air of Tom Nolan. I think Fares' defense is better. He's got better footwork. The gas tank is there. I think it's going to be competitive early, but I just think Ziam's going to be able to catch him. He's got really sharp striking. 1-2s right down the pipe, good front kicks, rangy style of striking, can push you up along the octagon side, mix in those knees. We saw him do that against Frevola. Good elbows in close. We saw he was able to melt a very dangerous Nazim Sadikov. And if Nicholas Mota, who I get, Tom Nolan's improved since then, and he's only 26, but I feel like Ziam is a lot sharper than a guy like Nicholas Mota. More well-rounded, a lot sharper on the feet. Ziam, to me, the guy that we've seen recently, not many holes in his game. And his defense has tightened up. His grappling has gotten better. I don't think Tom Nolan's out-grappling him. Maybe he could land some sort of knee up the middle or something, land a big kick, a big shot that Ziam doesn't see coming. Outside of that, I think Ziam wins this fight all day long. I could see him getting it done convincingly on the cards, or some sort of TKO stoppage. I'm going to side with a second-round KO by Ziam. I think he lands some damaging shots at range. Nolan starts to slow down, cover up along the fence. Ziam puts him away with some knees and elbows up along the fence. Give me Ziam to get it done. I'm very high on Ziam, man. I think that he became one of the better lightweights in the UFC, and I believe he's been training with Gaethje, getting some work in with Usman, Gaethje, Trevor Whitman, all that kind of stuff. And I feel like we've seen a lot of improvements in Fares' game, man. I think he's just better at this point than just about everything at Nolan. Give me Fares to get it done. I'm high on him. Co-main event, we got Brendan Allen versus Edmund Shahbazyan. Very interesting fight here. Because Brendan Allen, in a way, I do feel like is kind of overrated. And at one point, it felt like Brendan Allen was underrated, and now I feel like Brendan Allen is actually overrated. But the problem with this fight here is logic will just tell you that you have to pick Brendan Allen. And you kind of do. Because Edmund Shahbazyan on the feet, I have no doubt that at least early, he's much better than Brendan Allen. Edmen Shahbazyan, and I'm actually rooting for Edmen to win this fight. I like Edmen Shahbazyan a lot, right? Trains with Sean Strickland, which I think is something that could potentially really pay dividends and help Edmen a lot in this fight, right? Being able to defend the takedowns, survive some early grappling issues, get back to the feet, be able to land the more damaging shots, and potentially knock out Brendan Allen, right? We saw Sean Strickland put Brendan Allen away. We saw Chris Curtis do it before, I believe, right? And in the rematch, Chris Curtis, it was a close fight. Right, and I actually thought Chris Curtis won that fight, right? Split decision, right? Lost to Nasruddin Imavov, had a ton of success early, which was impressive, right? Then Imavov took over, right? This was a very close fight with Fluffy Hernandez, one of the best guys in the weight class, right? Kind of a back and forth with Vettori, but one that Allen was clearly winning, outstriking him on the feet, but putting himself in the line of fire to where Vettori was landing. And if you do that against Shahbazyan, Edmen could definitely catch him early. Right? Dominant performance over RDR after RDR dominated the first round and then just completely faded it. To me, it was clear that something was wrong with RDR in that fight, but still, Brendan Allen's good. He's got a good ground game. He's durable. He's tough. His gas tank is solid. His striking has gotten a lot better. Good leg kicks, good clinch work, solid hands. I feel like Brendan Allen's a more well-rounded fighter. And as long as he doesn't get clipped early, I think that he will beat Edmen Shahbazyan in this fight because I think Edmen Shahbazyan, honestly, like in a way, could be better than Brendan Allen, especially when it comes to the striking. And his takedown defense sometimes does look good. The problem with Edmen is you can't trust him, man. You just can't trust him, and it feels like when you're starting to trust him, that's when he lets you down, and I hope that that's not this case. I'm rooting for him to win this fight. And by the way, if we see an early stoppage, it's Edmen Shahbazyan knocking out Brendan Allen, which is kind of what I hope happens, right? Because I really like Shahbazyan's style. Gets submitted by GM3, dang near KO'd him. The ghost of GM3 strikes again, battles back into the fight, cockroaches his way to get the submission victory, KO's Dylan Budko's not UFC caliber. The fact that he went to a decision with Petroski, crazy, because Brundage just KO'd Petroski, which we predicted, by the way, right? So not a great, you see what I'm saying about Edmen? It's like, how do you lose to this guy? You go to a decision with, it's just all over the place. So it's like, how can you trust Edmen Shahbazyan in the biggest step up in his career? And I know that Shahbazyan's 28. He's made a ton of improvements. He's training with Sean Strickland and all those things. And I think it's possible Shahbazyan comes out here, makes good on the biggest win of his career. And to be fair, he went out there and destroyed Andre Muniz in the first round. And I'm pretty sure that Brendan Allen, it took till the third round to get Muniz out of there. I know styles make fights, and we've seen a lot of Brendan Allen's fights. It's taken him a while to get some of these guys out of there. It's when you look back on it, you're like, that's not the great. It taken until, the third round to get rid of Paul Craig? So I got reservations about Brendan Allen, man. I don't think he's as good as a lot of people think he is, but he's proven a lot more at the top than Edmen Shahbazyan has. So I'm going to side with Brendan Allen in this fight, but I'm going to say lower confidence than maybe a lot of people might say. I think Brendan Allen wins this fight. Wouldn't be surprised if he submits Edmen. If Edmen full-blown gasses, Brendan Allen will submit him in like the second or third round. But I think Edmen's gas tank will look a little bit better. I think he hurts Brendan really bad early, and I think he potentially could knock out Brendan Allen. I think that's a very likely possibility that he knocks out Brendan Allen in the very first round. But the thing about Brendan Allen, he's been in there with some of the best guys. He's had moments against some of the best guys. He's won rounds against some of the best guys. And he does have a very slick ground game. And on the feet, I think he can be smart enough early to not take crazy risks, duck underneath, take Edmen down, get to the back. And we've seen Shahbazyan, he can get his back taken. We saw Muniz do it early in the first round. And to me, Muniz at this stage in his career, when Edmen fought him, definitely not the same Muniz maybe that fought Brendan Allen some time ago. So interesting fight here, but I got to side with Brendan Allen. I think he has the more well-rounded game, the better gas tank. If Edmen's gas tank holds up, I think he could even win a decision and outstrike Allen and win this fight. But what we've seen from Shahbazyan is if you grapple him hard, he'll slow down. And then if he can't knock you out early, he'll slow down. And that's what concerns me. So it's basically it feels like early KO or bust for Edmen Shahbazyan is kind of how I'm looking at it. I'm not ruling out, not saying he can't outscore him and show improvements in the gas tank. He's still young. But I got to go off of what I've seen. And I've been an Edmen Shahbazyan believer, man. I've been high on Edmen. I've been picking him in a lot of these fights. Sometimes he's letting me down. A lot of times he's made me look good. But I got to side with Brendan Allen. I think the grappling will be the difference. If Shahbazyan gasses, Allen will submit him. If he doesn't full-blown gas and Allen can still get the takedowns, he'll win a control-based decision. What he did to RDR was very impressive. He's had some impressive moments. We've seen the striking improve. He battered Marvin Vettori. I got to go Brendan Allen in this fight. But I will, like I said, Shahbazyan, much better striker, very dangerous early, tons of power, great precision, good left hook, really sharp right hand, some good kicks as well, can pull you into that high kick. So everything possible in this fight. I think it's closer than what a lot of people might think. I could definitely see Shahbazyan KOing him early. That's what I hope because I like Edmund. But I got to go with what I've seen in Brendan Allen, who's done consistently well against really good opposition, to where when Edmund's fought better competition throughout his career, he's lost most of those fights to like a guy like, I think it was like Derek Brunson, Nasruddin Imavov, he got stopped, I believe. So, yeah, I got to go Brendan here. Main event, Belal Muhammad versus Gabriel Bonfim. If you guys are enjoying this video, if you could please do me a favor, give it a like, subscribe, and let me know what you think down in the comments. I would greatly appreciate it. And also hype the video as well. This is an interesting fight because Gabriel Bonfim, to me, is a guy that is showing all of the ability to be like a top welterweight. And welterweight is one of, if not the best weight class in the UFC right now. I think it's flyweight and welterweight are the two best. Gabriel Bonfim, since losing to Nicholas Dalby, to where he kind of got fraud checked in a sense, right? It was almost 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago, right? He got stopped by Nicholas Dalby, which isn't the greatest look. But at the end of the day, a lot of young fighters that have a ton of hype, they suffer some sort of setback at some point where they get stopped or get fraud checked, whatever. Not even fraud checked, reality checked, right? They just get taken to an area they're uncomfortable, haven't been, and bad things happen. That's what happened in that fight. Because since then, you know, decision with Angelos, I feel like he was a little bit cautious in that fight considering he's coming off of his first loss and it was a TKO loss, right? Brutal submission victory over Chaos Williams was very impressive. Close fight with Stephen Thompson. People were saying it was a robbery. Again, close fights are not robberies, but it was very close. Had some moments on the feet with the striking, but it was really the takedown, smudging Wonderboy up against the fence, which is what a lot of guys have to do in order to beat Wonderboy. Knocks out Randy Brown. Very, very impressive performance. Now, we've seen Randy Brown is not durable, and Randy Brown, in a way, is a guy that's kind of been overrated throughout his career. And I think Randy Brown, on a good night, is one of the better strikers, but he slows down. Gabriel Bonfim in this fight, I think if he's going to beat Belal Muhammad, he probably has to finish him early. And Bonfim is a guy that we've seen, the gas tank has been a problem. And now here he is in a 5-round fight, right? He was in a 5-rounder against Randy Brown, but he was able to put him away early. Bonfim's got a really good left hook, a good jab, a good right hand down the middle, excellent knees, good elbows, and really good calf kicks. I feel like he's been watching Ian Gary and Poatan with the way that those guys are throwing the calf kicks because Bonfim has been throwing some of the best low kicks in the UFC, right? Not really shifting the shoulders, just snapping them out there where there's like no telegraph, and he's been chewing, you know, like he did against Randy Brown. And we know that Randy Brown doesn't do a good job. He's got those toothpick legs, doesn't do a good job of dealing with leg kicks. And we've seen that throughout Randy's career. He butchered the lead leg of Randy Brown really, really bad, right? We've seen Bonfim really elevate his striking, and he's very explosive to where he could get you out of there early. And a nasty submission game, which I think can come into play, especially early if Belal Muhammad goes wrestle heavy. We've seen Bonfim in those front headlock positions. He's got really, really good submissions from there. My big concern for Bonfim is the gas tank. If I had a guarantee that his gas tank would be really, really good, I think he's got a good shot at beating Belal Muhammad. And I still think he's got a good shot at beating Belal. I just think he's got to get it done early. Not to say he couldn't go out here, surprise us. The gas tank looks better. He outscores him, outstrikes him, wins a damage-based decision. I think that's possible. But I think if Bonfim wins this fight, it's probably by a rocking Belal Muhammad, hurting him badly, finding some sort of submission. Because knowing that Belal is going to look to level change, I think that's where those knees up the middle are going to come into play for Bonfim. That's where that left hook around the guard of Belal Muhammad, who's predominantly a boxing-based striker, can come into play. And I think that knowing that Belal is going to shoot takedowns, put his head, right on the waistline, put his head right on the outside hip, those are going to be opportunities to where Bonfim can try to lock up some sort of submission, especially early when you're not as sweaty, right? Those are some of the best times to catch somebody in a sub. Before you get all sweaty, it becomes a little bit easier to get yourself out of those positions. That's how I see Bonfim winning the fight, would be butchering the leg of Belal Muhammad, making him more of a sitting duck. Belal shoots a sloppy takedown, locks into submission, stings him up, hurts him on the feet. But what we've seen from Belal, very durable, excellent cardio, will not slow down, and is literally built for 5-round fights. Belal Muhammad is a 5-round fighter. He's got great pressure. He's a very smart fighter. No matter what you think of Belal Muhammad, whether you think he's cringe, annoying, whatever, Belal Muhammad's a smart fighter. Very, very smart fighter. He's got high fight IQ. His striking has gotten a lot better throughout his career, and his wrestling is really good. And he's almost impossible to take down. Bonfim's not taking Belal Muhammad down. I feel really good about that. That's like the most confident thing I could say about this fight is Bonfim's gas tank is not better than Belal, and he's definitely not taking Belal down. The only way that this fight ends up on the ground and any type of problem for Belal is is by Belal shooting the takedown, getting Bonfim down, and then Bonfim turns it into a flow grappling match where the jiu-jitsu starts to take over, because Bonfim has better jiu-jitsu than Belal. But Belal's the much better wrestler. He's got the much better gas tank, and his output is much better. And I actually think Belal might be the better boxer. Right, I think Bonfim's got a good left hook, but outside of that, Belal's combos are good. I mean, I know he lost this fight to JDM, and JDM was tuning him up, but JDM's a much better overall boxer than Bonfim. Right, just because JDM got dominated by Islam and beaten up by Protes, which I faded JDM in both of those fights, JDM's still one of the best strikers in this weight class. We saw Belal land some good shots. We saw him land some takedowns in that fight. He's got to be careful shooting, especially early. And I think Belal's going to know that. I think early, you're going to see a lot of forward pressure and a lot of heavy striking from Belal. And then as the fight starts to play out, that's where you're going to see Belal start to wrestle a little bit more, where some of the pop, some of that explosiveness of Bonfim starts to get to go away. And I think that would be smart of Belal, right? He had moments in this fight against Ian Gary, right? We picked Gary in this fight to get it done because of the movement, because of the versatility of Gary. And I think Gary clearly is one of the best 170-pound fighters in the world, the only guy to beat Carlos Prates. So Belal's been in there with the best guys. I mean, he was on a crazy win streak, right? TKOing Sean Brady. Brady, as good of a grappler as Brady is, he didn't even bother trying to take down Belal Muhammad. So if Brady's not taking him down, Bonfim ain't taking him down, right? Gilbert Burns, okay, right? That was kind of a weird fight, the way that fight played out, but Belal clearly won, dominated Leon Edwards to get the job done. I think Belal Muhammad wins this fight by a decision. And I could definitely see a scenario to where if the gas tank has not improved from Bonfim, I could possibly see a late TKO stoppage from Belal Muhammad. But we know that Belal doesn't have a ton of power. He's not known for really knocking people out, which is why it was kind of a bad look for Brady to get KO'd by Belal, right? But at the end of the day, Belal's submission threat is not really there. There's really no submission threat with Belal. It's basically pressure, pace, output, volume, and he will not stop for 25 minutes, and he's durable as hell. Belal can take a punch better than dang near anybody in the UFC, man. Like, Belal, to me, is one of the most durable fighters of all time. Like, when people talk about Nate Diaz, Holloway, Marvin Vettori, like, I think Belal Muhammad's almost in that conversation, if not in that conversation. So, I don't know that Bonfim KOs him. I know he's got power. He's looked really, really good. He's very explosive, and I think that he's clearly the better Bonfim brother. Like, I feel like we've all seen that, and I think it'd be cool to see Bonfim win this fight. Some new life in the division. He's an exciting fighter. He's very explosive. But in the apex, in the smaller octagon, I feel like Belal is going to put a hellacious pace on this guy, man, and just melt him as the fight starts to play out. So like I said, Bonfim, early stoppage, stinging Belal. You know, Belal shoots a sloppy takedown, front headlock position, gets some sort of, submission that way, beats up the lead leg of Belal, makes him a sitting duck, finds a way to KO him. That'd be crazy impressive. I think if Bonfim wins, it's by stinging him up. Belal shoots a sloppy takedown and gets subbed. But I don't think that happens. I think Belal's pressure, pace will be too much. Maybe Bonfim takes the first round, and then Belal will win. I think Belal, and obviously I'm picking him by decision, he at least wins 3 rounds. But I think Belal, we're looking at a potential like Arnold Allen, Mel Costa type of deal here, to where it's basically like early success maybe from Bonfim. He's very, very dangerous. But I think that explosiveness, when you're explosive like that, we tend to see those guys with the gas tank, it starts to dwindle. So if Bonfim has fixed the cardio, I think he has a real shot to win this fight. And I still give him a real shot, especially early, because he's very, very dangerous. And I like Bonfim's game. And it'd be fun to see him win, but unfortunately for him, I don't think he's getting it done. Belal, one of the best welterweights in the world, whether you like him or not. He's very game. His striking has gotten a lot better. Canelo hands, dog, right? His boxing has gotten better, right? His striking has gotten better. He's smart. He'll mix it up. He'll take some of the early explosiveness from Bonfim. Then he'll start to drain it, start to pressure him. And I don't know how well Bonfim will deal with the pressure of Belal in rounds 3, 4, and 5. And I think that's where Belal will take over and win. A pretty dominant decision. Early, Bonfim will look good, maybe even win a round or 2, and then Belal will take over rounds 3, 4, 5 and get the job done. Possibly even a late TKO stoppage if Bonfim's gas tank lets him down miserably. Good fight, good main event. Really excited for this card, man. A lot of great matchups. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, man, this is one of the better Apex cards I feel like the UFC has ever put together. Some of the most struggling I've done all year in terms of predictions for a card. Maybe I'm overthinking some of the matchups, but that to me is the sign of a very, very good card. Excited for this one, man.